Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Tonight is Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Hurston Sanchez. I'm a third-year doctoral student at FIU. And every single Wednesday we have a different topic. And tonight we have a lot to share with you, a lot of important information, especially because elections are coming up. And tonight we have an extraordinary gentleman on the show. Feel free to introduce yourself, tell the people who you are.
Yeah, of course. My name is Peter Schoenthal. You can find me on Instagram. I'm the @humanattorney. It's humanitarian meets attorney, the humanattorney. I am a criminal defense attorney. I have my own firm, Bruno and Schoenthal Trial Lawyers. You can find us at brunoschoenthal.com. Do a lot of social justice work. I work a lot in the community. I'm very passionate about some of the topics we're going to discuss today, and I want to thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. What's the name of your podcast? You also do a podcast?
Yeah. I'm also the new host of the Felony Miami podcast. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter, YouTube,
Spotify,
Stitcher, iTunes. Basically, it is a podcast where we talk about social justice, not just the court system. We have a wide variety of guests. Really fun stuff, really cool stuff. Please check us out, Felony Miami.
So thank you so very much. We've been talking here before the show. Extremely knowledgeable and insightful. So thanks so much for being on the show tonight. So let's get into it, man. We're talking tonight about Amendment 6, Amendment 4, prisons, criminal justice system. And y'all, please feel free to ask questions, post comments. This is your first time tuning in. You're always welcome, more than welcome to just share your input with us. So let's get into it, man. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Amendment 6, because Amendment 6 to me is something I'm very passionate about. It is been misinterpreted. It has been really a little bit of a lie, so let's get into it. If you want, I can read about it. You can read it.
Whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Amendment 6 is basically an amendment to our Constitution that is founded on victims' rights in the criminal justice system. It sounds great on paper, right? Who wouldn't want more victims' rights? Someone is a victim in a crime, they should have a say. The problem with that amendment is it presupposes that there are no rights for victims, and there are. The amendment really steps on due process. It violates due process, and it's masked as pro-victim. And so let me get into it. The amendment is basically based on what's called Marsy's Law. Marsy's Law was started by a rich philanthropist out in California. His sister was killed. The man that was arrested that committed that crime I think was released on bond. He couldn't believe that he had very little say in the process. So him and a bunch of other lobbyists put some money behind this, and they wanted to have a say. The problem with it is that victims do have rights, right? I'm a criminal defense attorney. I can tell you that every step of the way, victims have a say. If I'm in plea negotiations with the state attorney, most of those pleas have to be approved by the victim. Every step of the way, a victim is allowed to be in court and to be heard. Okay? That already happens.
No matter what the crime is?
No matter what.
Okay.
In fact, the Constitution already says it, because Marsy's Law, Amendment 6, if voted yes on, would delete a sentence from the Constitution that states, and I'm going to read it here, victims are entitled to all of their rights if they don't infringe on those of the accused. That sentence is already in our Constitution. They already have rights. They are entitled to all of their rights. Our system is built on you are innocent until proven guilty. We have due process. And the problem is people who are in support of Marsy's Law want to even the playing field. The playing field is even. The state attorney does not represent victims. They take in their interest into account, interest a part of it, but they represent the state, they represent the people. So one of the things Marsy's Law wants to do is it wants to eliminate the right in Florida for criminal depositions when it involves a victim. Victims would not have to be a part of a deposition. Now, a deposition, for those that don't understand, and I'll get into that, is basically where an attorney gets to interview all witnesses to a crime. It allows you to prepare for your trial. It allows you to flush your case. It allows you to really allow for due process. And for the most part, it's one of our best tools to see if someone is wrongfully accused or a witness or a victim is lying. If you get rid of this, that doesn't happen. The first time I would ever talk to a victim would be on the stand. And many people are guilty. Many people commit. There are real victims out there. But the unintended consequence of this amendment would make it easier and allow for others to wrongfully accuse people and get away with it. And we know that most people who are wrongfully accused, most people that are wrongfully treated in the criminal justice system come from low-income areas and are minorities. It would have an unintended consequence on those people, just like the war on drugs did. And that is a huge issue. Don't get fooled by it. There already are rights. It is to tip the scales, and that just isn't right. If you want to change anything, go to a system from guilty and then prove your innocence. Right now, we want to make sure that innocent people don't go to jail, and this would really affect it in a negative way.
So I've seen a lot of commercials on this.
Kelsey Grammer?
Yeah. On
Kelsey
YouTube,
Grammer's all over.
Especially, and I think one of the great points that you make is that victims already have rights.
And they already have it. And who doesn't want victims to have rights?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? The pitch is like, victims need it. They have them. I swear to you, they have them. I am not here saying take away victims' rights. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
If you're the victim of a crime, you should have rights. You should have a say. And I get that it's uncomfortable for victims, especially of sexual assault, to sit through a deposition. I get that. But our system is built on the crux of due process, and you are innocent until proven guilty. That is part of our system. It is what our country was founded on. And taking that away would really be a mistake. Other states have done it, and it has negatively impacted them. We are one of only 3 states, I believe, left that has criminal depositions.
And you were saying that, before the show, you were saying that this is one of the reasons why it takes so long sometimes, or why people sit so long in jail, right?
If I'm an attorney, right, and I don't get these depositions and certain pre-trial aspects are taken away from me, I now have to go out of my way and try to do an investigation that is much harder for me to do than on the state's end, right? That will delay my case, because right now you have a constitutional right for a speedy trial. It would be nearly impossible in felony cases to push cases to trial within the speedy trial window without depositions. It's already hard. And so now people get put off. You hear, all the stuff in New York. People sit on Rikers for 10 years before their trial. That's because, sometimes it takes time to really build that case. And in New York, you don't have depositions. You don't have the right to certain discovery. It's much more strenuous on the attorney. It's much more difficult to find the truth and get to the bottom of it. And oftentimes people sit in jail longer because then we get into the bond system and the bail system and the cash bail system. Not everyone can afford to bail out. They're stuck. They're sitting. They're losing their rights. They're losing their lives. They're losing their families. They're losing their jobs. Many times when nothing really happened. And this is a way to flush that.
So this is low. I'm trying to process what you're saying, because this is a lot.
Yeah.
And
there's more. We can get it. Okay.
So I'm kind of curious as to, because a lot of people have been pushing Amendment 4, and this is extremely important, which we'll also talk about. But why do you think Amendment 6 hasn't really been addressed like that?
Because if you read the amendment, a lot of this is left out. It's very, basically, if you read the amendment, can we pull this up?
Yeah.
I'll read the amendment, and I hate to delay while I'm...
Oh, no, you're fine, yeah.
So 6, we don't have it here. I have it somewhere. So basically, all it says is Amendment 6 would make changes to the state's law regarding the rights of crime victims, the age of which judges are required to retire, and judicial deference, right? And so we get going, and it would provide crime victims, their families, and their lawful representatives with specific rights, including a right to due process and to be treated with fairness and respect. The right to be free from intimidation, harassment, and abuse. That's, by the way, you can't harass a victim as is. That's not true. And a right to have a victim's welfare considered when setting bail. That's already taken into account if they're there. A right to proceedings free from unreasonable delay, among others. I assure you that is already part of the system. I promise you it is. But when this was legislated, a lot of people don't know that, and it sounds sexy. It sounds like the right thing to do, but it's not. I promise you it's not.
real quick, we have a question from Celeric saying, is it the Florida legislator who is proposing to change the law who put this amendment forward?
No. Marcy's law started out in California. Started by someone who was out in California. It's been, I think it's been passed in like 8 or 9 states already. It just finally made its way to Florida.
So, Super Fan Wing Young is saying, so no on Amendment 6. That's what you're kind of proposing, right?
Yes.
He's saying it also gives corporations victim rights. Is that true?
Not really. I mean, I'd have to actually have a little more information on it, but corporations, I guess so. On fraud cases, it would. If you defraud a corporation, they go forward on a money laundering case. Yes, it would.
Oh wow! So I guess when I think of a victim, I guess I'm thinking of an individual person. So this also applies to an entity.
So when you defraud a company, the victim is usually the owner, the listed owner. But just because you're the owner, you're representing your company.
Yeah.
So it's. I guess what he's getting at is, yes, it is masked in that sense that it could be a corporation.
Okay. Yeah, this is important. Again, this is information. I guess is one of the points of the show tonight, to kind of clarify some of these misconceptions and complexities in which this how the stuff is written.
I'll give you another one.
Yeah,
one of the other issues that it does for victims' rights is, if this passes, once you file your appeal, the appeal must be resolved in 2 to 5 years. Otherwise, your appeal goes away. If anyone's in the appellate industry, you know that it takes time. You've got to sift through papers, find witnesses. Oftentimes, the most of the delays happen from the appellate court. They don't hear your case right away. There's many cases ahead of you. They delay it. It doesn't say what happens if the court delays it. It just said, like, if you're on death row and you appeal a case and it takes longer than 5 years and you're wrongfully accused, oh well, goodbye. That's not due process. The goal should be to get it right, not to put a time bar on something.
Yeah.
You know?
Ideally, right? Yeah.
The goal in the criminal justice system should always be to get it right, to make sure we do not have innocent people sitting in jail for crimes they did not commit. And if that's going to be if we're going to go with that, that is the crux of our system. Sometimes people's our victims won't be happy. Sometimes they won't feel heard. But what's the greater good? What is the greater good? What is the lesser of the evils?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. We have another question from Seller asking, who is benefiting from this amendment? Why push it forward if victims are protected? Is there a motive behind this towards incarcerating minorities?
I don't believe there's a motive behind incarcerating minorities. I believe that there are times where victims feel unheard. Look, if you're a victim of a crime, I want to downplay it. You're in an emotional state. Terrible things have happened.
Trauma.
But at the end of the day, the state of, like, in this instance, state of Florida versus John Smith, right? The state of Florida doesn't represent the victim. They represent the interests of the state. And oftentimes, the interest of the state and the interest of justice isn't always eye to eye with what the victim wants. Justice isn't always what the victim wants, right? Let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say you steal someone's car, right? And the right punishment for that, who knows what it is, let's just, everything's gray, right? But let's just put black and white on it, is 1 year. Well, that is, and everyone believes it's 1 year, but that victim thinks, no, you should be in prison for 5 years. Should they have more say because they were the victim? No, we need to protect society. We need to make sure that everyone is treated fairly, including the accused.
It's not, like you said, there's a lot of gray, but I'm glad you're explaining this, though, because personally, I don't know about y'all, but I had no idea about the complexities of this amendment.
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't either until it was on the ballot, and my law partner was the one that, Anthony Bruno, shout out to Anthony Bruno, was the one that really schooled me a lot on this, and I started doing my research, and he was just dead on with all of this.
Oh, wow. Shout out to Bruno. Thank you so much, because this is a tough one that I think a lot of people just, and when we see these advertisements or this, I guess, these clips on YouTube was where I've seen it the most.
Who's going to advertise and say, don't give the victims their rights?
Yeah, and it's, right, yeah. So, but I think a point you made earlier, by it's already saying give victims more rights, it's already implying that they already do have rights.
I'm going to read it again because it's important. Amendment 6 would delete this sentence. Victims are entitled to all of their rights if they don't infringe on those of the accused. Twofold. A, they already have rights in the Constitution. B, If you erase that sentence, you say therefore they can therefore infringe on the accused's rights. You are now getting in the way of due process. You are now lessening due process. That is not what we want. That sentence is in there. So we have to be very careful with what we do. Sometimes things seem really good and powerful on its surface, and they're not, and this is one of them.
No, yeah, and I completely just appreciate you bringing this to light, because even before the show, we had agreed on, all right, Amendment 4,
Yeah.
and then you text me, hey, let's talk about this too, and I think this was great, because I had no idea about this. I hope y'all are learning something. So that's Amendment 6, so vote no.
Vote no.
On Amendment 6. Victims already do have rights. So what about Amendment 4?
All right, so Amendment 4 is very interesting. I have some issues with it. The overall good of it is great, right? We are one of 4 states that does not restore a convicted felon's right to vote and have certain rights.
Wow. Okay. So 46 other states already restored them.
Yeah, I have it here. I'll pull it up because I have bad memory. Excuse me. Iowa, Kentucky, Virginia, and us in Florida.
Iowa, Kentucky, Virginia, and Florida.
So what happens is if I'm convicted of a crime, the point of the system is punishment and rehabilitation, right? Now, we can all argue about that, and we know that rehabilitation is not taken as seriously as it needs to be. We are in a vindictive society, and punishment, even if you look at the penal code, is what we push. But once you've served your time, once you have gotten out of jail, you're done with probation, you've done the time for your crime, but not in Florida, because you no longer have certain rights, and one of them is to vote. And one of the issues becomes with that is we're going through criminal justice reform, and we're going through an aspect of, do we still want to convict people? Do we still want to take away people's rights for low-level drug crimes, whether it be possession or even selling, and nonviolent crimes, right? Because we've seen that the people that are affected the most are people who live in low-income areas and minorities. They are policed harder, and therefore they are convicted of more felonies for possession of crime. That also goes to the bail system. Some people can't bail out, some people can, they take pleas. And then they don't have a say in our election process, which therefore does affect them. I believe last year, or in the last election cycle, 10% of the population couldn't vote because of this. And more than a majority of them were people who lived in low-income areas or minorities. So it's a form of disfranchising, right? Especially since we're not policing those individuals the same way, and we're not treating them we're not treating them as fair in the criminal justice system. So this is, to me, a way to even the playing field and why you should vote yes. Now, I do have issues with it. Right now, the way the ballot reads is that everyone would get their rights restored. All convicted felons would get their rights restored so long as it's not murder that you were convicted of, and sexual assault. I think there are certain violent felonies that maybe you should lose your rights. But again, it goes to what's the lesser of the evil and not restoring rights, especially when we've seen how being convicted felon is much more likely to happen, not based on the crime you commit, but the color of your skin and where you live while in the criminal justice system.
Yeah, we're getting a comment here saying, and I think to your point, it's just another way of keeping minorities who make up a large majority of prisoners down.
Yes. The best way to really frame it, though, in my opinion, is we hear the phrase, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Well, people are doing the time after doing the crime, but then the time extends in other aspects. So it's not fair.
No, absolutely. And
go ahead. And right now, basically the way it works is in order to get your rights restored, you have to go through like a big panel. It's almost impossible. You got to file these paperwork.
So there is a way of getting them restored, but it's...
Technically. That's how they keep it constitutional, but no.
So would this restore rights like immediately? So they would be able to vote in the next election, or are there like technicalities around that?
No. Once it passes and there's that date of enactment, Once you are basically no longer in the system, you're either out of prison, you're not on probation. Once your case is closed, your rights are restored for election purposes, for having the ability to vote.
Yeah.
I don't think it affects everything, but
we have about 1.4 million people in Florida, right, who cannot vote.
Yep. Who
are, I think the new term I've heard is returning citizens or something. But yeah, so these two amendments are huge, is what we're saying.
It could swing the state.
Yeah. Do you think that's a reason why maybe some people are pushing for no? Maybe a reason of many.
I think I'd be naive if I said no.
Yeah.
Most people I talk to, both conservative and liberal, are pretty in favor for this.
Really?
Yeah. Most of my conservative friends that are opposed to it are actually opposed to it because of what I said. It's too encompassing. It's it's just murder and rapist. Like, there are still some other bad crimes out there that people shouldn't vote. But don't forget that in order for an amendment to pass, it's supermajority. It's not 51%, it's 60%.
60%, right, yeah.
So just because most of us feel a certain way, or more than half of us feel a certain way, doesn't mean that these amendments are going to pass.
We need 60% of the people voting.
Supermajority.
Yeah. Okay. So vote yes on 4.
Yes.
No on 6.
4 could be framed better, but yes, let's vote yes on 4.
Yes on 4. Yeah. So yes would not give them more rights.
If you vote yes on 4, convicted
rights.
felons would have their rights restored for voting and election purposes.
6.
Unless you killed someone.
Or sexual assault. Yeah. Okay. Now, a lot of the work that you do, you're a criminal defense attorney.
Yeah.
So you're constantly engaging with people who are in prisons. And you also have a podcast that, I don't know if you want to mention it again.
Felony Miami, check us out.
Felony Miami, it's on all major platforms. And you all talk a lot about prisons. So what exactly do you think viewers should kind of take with them, learn, what's some insight that you can kind of share with us?
In what sense? Because there's so much to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about. So what is kind of like your day-to-day? Like, I think we can just start there alone. Because you handle, I'm sure, some pretty serious cases.
Yeah, serious cases and a lot of non-serious cases. But I say that because of the work I'm in, but every case is serious to my clients, right?
Absolutely.
And so we deal, the misconception of the criminal justice system is you're dealing with a bunch of bad guys. As we all know, people are wrongfully accused, and sometimes people are really good people make one bad mistake, and my job is, how do I stop that stupid mistake from defining your life? Or you being wrongfully accused, how do I get your life back? And that's a lot of the work we do. A lot of people ask, how do you do what you do? It's not always representing, murderers and rapists. And when you do represent someone that's awfully guilty, whether I represent an innocent person or a guilty person, I represent the Constitution. My job is to make sure that the state attorneys and the judges and the police and the FBI and the DEA and all government actors are doing their job and not cutting corners. I am not a magician, but it is my job to ensure that the system is being carried out the way we intended for it to do. Now, unfortunately, the system is not perfect. There are many holes. It is broken in many areas, but I try every day to at least keep it together as much as possible.
Now, how? It's because I guess you also have to have hope, right, in a system, right? And I feel that's a tough thing to have, especially when you're in this life day to day. You see so many people who are disenfranchised, continue to be disenfranchised.
Get rid of midmans. The system will never be. You'll never find a perfect system.
Of course.
But creating guidelines that take away the gray area is what's ruining it. You are putting people and judges in positions that see the gray, that they have no control, right? The war on drugs is the biggest issue of it, right? Many of the midmans that were put in place, but what I mean by midman is based on the crime you commit, your past record, there is a guideline for how much jail you can do at the maximum and at the minimum. The problem with it is it isn't that simple, and it's just very difficult, and it's been affected disproportionately because certain people are, I'll give you an example. If I'm in a low-income area and I get caught with cocaine, right, and I can't bail out of jail, sometimes it's easier just to plea it out, and I got to get back to my family, I got to get back to my excuse my language, I got to get back to my job, so all right, so that's a conviction. Where someone who's in a better position can bond out, fight the case, and maybe get a better plea deal. Now they're not a convicted felon. Now that keeps happening. Now when that person, is accused of a real crime, now they see all 9 of these like cocaine convictions or whatever the case may be, and that adds to their score. Those convictions didn't necessarily make them a bad person. So if you take that same person that kept bailing out and wasn't getting those convictions, and now they commit that same bad crime, person on the left that has all those stupid convictions might be facing 40 years while the other person's facing 10. Why is that fair? Why is that fair? And Midman's also where there's a big issue is it takes your constitutional right away to really go to trial. Because if I'm facing 40 years at a mandatory for this crime and the state's offering me 5 years, I might be innocent, but is it worth that risk? Those are the decisions people shouldn't have to make.
How do these deals work exactly? Because you hear about these extreme cases where like, all right, you have to do 20, 30 years, but if you take this deal, then you'll get 10 minutes. So like, how do these deals actually like work? Why are they
efficiency, right? The state and the federal government are oftentimes more the state are willing to give you better deals, so they don't have to spend money on their case and drag witnesses in and get cops in and take them off the street, and they have high caseload, so they want to lower it. It's for efficiency.
So it's really not even about the person. It's really just
one of the things I specialize in and I try to do most is called mitigation. How do I turn my client from a defendant and a number and make you see John Smith and make you see Mary Smith? How do I bring the individual before the state attorney rather than have them look at a number? How do I get them to sympathize with my client? How do I get them to spend to walk a day in their shoes? That's your most powerful tool to get the state to do something that is more reasonable than they otherwise would do.
I was in class yesterday and we were talking about research and good research, how it has to be evocative. You have to have like thick descriptions to create a resonance in people, so they can kind of believe
you have to tell a story.
Your story, right?
You have to tell a story.
So it seems like that's kind of what you're also kind of saying. It's not like the movies or the shows that we watch, I'm sure, but maybe it is. I don't know.
It depends on the show. Depends on the episode.
But this is so. I mean, I don't know. It might be a dumb question, but is this tough? Like we were talking about self-care as well prior to the show, and how do you practice that in the midst of all this stuff?
I've gotten really good at turning it off when I go home. You have to. You can't be in my line of work if you take everything home with you. There's just too much injustice on a day-to-day basis. It'll wear you down.
Yeah.
You have to take care of yourself first in order to take care of others. I'm a big fan of the analogy, if the plane's going down, you got to put your oxygen mask on first before you can put someone else's on. But it's hard. It is, because you see a lot of injustice. You see a lot of people being done wrong, and there are days where I struggle with it. There are days where I bang my head against the wall. There's days where I go home and it's hard to turn it off. But I've learned how to, and it's something that I need to do in order to do this for a long time, and I understand that by doing that, I'm doing good work for others. And so there are days I don't want to, there's days I'm affected more, but I know it's all about the greater good, and someone's got to do the fight.
Man, this is tough work, man. This is definitely tough work, because you're in this every single day doing, and on top of this, you do other social justice type of stuff. Like,
but you got to look at it like you're helping. Like no matter,
for sure.
No matter what,
yeah.
And like you have to take solace in that, and you have to. Every now and again, it's hard to get lost. It's easy to get lost in the trees. Sometimes you got to step out and look at the forest.
Yeah.
And so, I'm lucky.
I like that analogy. Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to have people in my life that are supportive, and they let me know the good work I'm doing, and there's days where I'm like, what the fuck's going on, and I'm lucky to have a support system that keeps me in check and motivates me on a daily basis to keep going.
No, absolutely, and I think we all need that, right?
Everyone, I don't care what line of work you're in.
And one thing, I was listening to the show, to your show.
Felony Miami.
Yeah, Felony Miami. Please follow them. And it was just so insightful. You made a really interesting point. You were talking about how if you're in prison, you have I believe you call it society, because in society there's a structure.
Prison is a society.
Right.
It is a community.
And you said when prisoners come out, I think you brought up the movie Shawshank Redemption, right? And the older gentleman that finally is let out, right, looking forward to this his entire life, ends up killing himself.
Yeah.
How do you think we kind of treat our prisoners like post serving time?
Our system was supposed to be created on punishment and rehabilitation. We have done nothing to rehabilitate. We send you to the jungle. When you're in prison, you have to change your mind frame. You are in survival mode. You have to become someone often that you don't want to be. And we don't help them integrate back into society. We don't help them turn that switch off. We don't help them have skills so they can work and have a living. Many times people go to prison and they're there for a long time and they have a role. You have a job. Your meals are taken care of. You have a place to live. You know your role in society. Now you get out, you're released. Oftentimes your family's not there. You have no money in your pocket. You're oftentimes in a city that you don't know because you've been shipped up to North Florida or South Florida. And now you don't have a place. We wonder why there's recidivism. Oftentimes it's a form of self-sabotage because you feel more comfortable in prison. A lot of times, think about it. You're 18 years old, you go to prison for 20 years. You've lived longer in prison than you have on the outside. And then we say, why can't you get your shit together? Why aren't you ready to be in society? Because we haven't helped you. We haven't given you any education. We haven't given you any life skills. We haven't given you any tools. There isn't like this, transition process. It's like, all right, you've done your time, now go on. How does that benefit society? It just creates criminals. It just enforces that you're better off committing another crime so you can go back to what's normal. We're not helping people. It's not sexy to fund that. It's not sexy to talk about. But then we all wonder why are there crimes? Why does this person keep committing a crime? What are we doing as a society to better people in that situation? Especially people when they're young and they commit crimes. Often it's because of their circumstances or their lack of education or the people they're around or they're falsely accused.
Poverty.
What are we doing to make the system better? We don't think long term. We think in these short election processes every 4 years, like what's going to keep people happy then, and then we wonder why things don't get better long term. You can't have things get better long term if your plan isn't a long term plan. If you think short term, you will get short term responses, you will get short term reactions, you will get short term goals. That would be that.
So we have a question here from Rising Messy asking, can there be a solution to help the transition, or maybe how can we better help with transition?
Yeah, more programs, right? Like create job programs. I'll give you one. Why don't we have job fairs for prison releasees? There's jobs out there, but a lot of people don't know where to go. A lot of these guys come out there and not using the internet. They've been long enough, right? Like why don't we have job fairs? Why don't we create structure? Why don't we educate?
Yeah.
We force kids to go to school. Look, you're in prison. You're stuck. We should force education.
Yeah.
It's an option, but it's not forced. Like we can incentivize certain actions. We don't do any of it. We send you to the cage. It's cheaper to give you a shitty meal with no education, with no programs on the outside. No one cares about people in prison. It's not sexy to run on prison reform. Or it's barely sexy to run on criminal justice reform.
Right, and it's even creating mental health programs for people coming back.
Well, there's another issue. Most of our people in prisons have mental health issues. What are we doing to treat them? We're forcing drugs down the throat. Sometimes we're not even giving them their drugs that they need.
And they're creating more problems.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible.
It's a
and mental health is we undertreat mental health in this country, as is most people that go through the criminal justice system. I shouldn't say most, but a large portion have mental health issues. They're not committing. A lot of people who are addicted to drugs that end up in prison on drugs are self-medicating due to undiagnosed mental health issues. Like these are things we're not discussing. These are things that we're not doing as a society to get better. We are so far behind a lot of these countries that are doing a better job of it. Why aren't we? We're supposed to be the best country in the world, as everyone says. Why aren't we doing these things that seem so simple on a humanitarian level?
Yeah.
We're incarcerating everyone.
And it's
why do people go to jail for drugs? I don't.
That's another conversation. Man, I've always wanted to have a conversation about marijuana. I think that'd be pretty cool. Maybe another episode.
You can bring on Elon Musk.
Yeah. Who?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Who's that?
He's, the guy that owned Tesla. Started Tesla.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
That's my little joke. It didn't get caught.
My fault, man. My fault. So, yeah. So transition. I mean, trauma. Everything they experienced. So this is one case. I forgot his name. It was a young black kid from New York.
Yeah, that was the one I referenced earlier. I forget his name too. He spent about 10 years in Rikers before his trial.
He ended up committing suicide. There were some really graphic videos that came out of him getting just the shit beaten out of him by guards. How often do you hear of this type of stuff?
All the time. I mean, the honey bun case in Miami, in the juvenile system. Guards need to create order, right? They're the politicians in the jail. And so in Miami, if you're not familiar with the honey bun case, basically guards were paying off kids in honey buns and other snacks to carry out their dirty deeds because they knew they couldn't put their hands on the kids and enforce, so they created enforcers through sweets. And it was a big issue. And same thing in jails. Who's supervising the guards, right? Like the warden, it's like police mentality in that. It's like, the brotherhood. If a prisoner complains, who cares, right? Where are those complaints going? So they have free reign. There's no accountability. So they do what's easy. They enforce and they intimidate, and that's how they get their. How they get what they want. It's not sexy to stand up for, a convicted robber, a convicted drug dealer, and be like, he has rights too while he's in prison. No one cares, and it's sad.
Yeah, man, and not just that, but I was watching this interview with Brian Stevenson, attorney, I think from Alabama. He was talking about just all the rape that happens in prisons too.
And it's not even because of sexual orientation. A lot of times, it's a form of dominance.
Yeah, well, and we know with rape that's usually what it ends up being.
Of course, yeah,
right?
yeah. Whether in prison or not.
Yeah. John just kind of exercising this power over people. So man, just thank you for all the work that you do, because you also do a lot of just pro bono stuff. Right, you're in the community also helping us, not just.
Check out my God's Plan video at
Yeah, I was checking it out, man. I love the remix, man. It was dope. You and your another attorney.
Yeah, me and my law partner. We went to a homeless shelter and we wanted to do something different. We went to a homeless shelter. We brought a bunch of barbers. We brought a DJ,
music,
we did a dance party. We filmed it and we kind of basically lip synced the God's Plan song, and we were inspired by Drake, and we just wanted to give back to the community and do it in a really unique way. You can find some of it on my Instagram page. If you go to the Bruno and Schoenthal YouTube channel, you can find it there as well.
Yeah, I think I clicked on it's on YouTube, right?
Yeah. It's my music video.
Yeah,
it's a legit music video. We have the song, we lip sync it. It goes from us rapping near a yacht to at the homeless shelter. It's really cool.
Yeah,
really cool
and you show people getting haircuts, and people getting fed. Man,
be different. Right?
Yeah, it was dope, man.
Be different.
We have another question. Can educating the person through these programs help the person understand what they have done so they can improve?
Well, I think people who go to jail, whether they say they've done it or not, if they are guilty, they know. And I will say this: you can't help someone who doesn't want help, right? If they don't want to accept responsibility, if they don't want to better themselves, you'll never better someone. But it's our job as a society to put together opportunities for those who do want to help themselves, right? If you have 100 people and only 5 of them are affected, you still help 5 people.
Yeah, and that's like you said, all you can do is put these resources out there.
All you can do is put the water in front of the horse.
Make it accessible.
Hopefully a few of them drink.
Yeah, man, you're full of analogies, man. You got all the analogies.
I'm a big analogy guy.
Well, man, thank you so much. I can't believe it's already been almost 45 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Time flies, man.
Time flies, man. And
this has been Wednesdays.
This has been heavy stuff tonight too, man. That you've addressed a lot, and I really highly suggest that everyone catch your podcast because you do a lot more of this. When's the next episode coming out?
We have a meeting about it tomorrow. We'll find out. I've been on 2 of the episodes, but I'm the new host for season 3, so you can check me out on there. We got some really good stuff coming up. Some really good topics. We're gonna be talking about some mental health. Yeah, really good
Felony
stuff.
Miami.
Felony Miami. Check us out. Bruno and Schoenthal Law. You ever get arrested, hit me up. You can find me on Instagram at Humanattorney, Human.
Hold on, let me type it up here for the people.
Yeah,
Humanittorney. Yeah.
Ttorney.
Cool. And I also tagged him in today's promo video on my personal page and on Woke Wednesdays.
Awesome.
So, man, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you coming
the
out.
work you do.
Man, absolutely, man. And y'all, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I'll post this to the Instagram story. You can watch it for the next 24 hours. Feel free to share it. And it'll also be on YouTube. Link is in the bio. So again, thank y'all for tuning in, bro. Thanks so much for stopping by the show. And yeah, man, y'all take care, and we'll definitely check out all his stuff. So thank you so much.
Take care, everyone. Go vote.